Ready to roll? Yeah. All right, got the thumbs up. All right, we're going to call this budget workshop to order. Today is July 14th, 2025, and we are going to start with the pledge and get right into the workshop here. Oh, man. Here, why don't I just do it? All right, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And seeing no one from the public, I'm assuming there's hundreds online, we will move right into the workshop. So, Mrs. City Manager Pro Tem.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. City Manager Larry had to be out of town today and tomorrow, so I'm just sitting in to get this budget workshop off to a start. If you don't mind, I'm going to come around front and put my Finance Director hat on, and we will walk through the budget. All right, so this evening you have in your packet, we have a short little synopsis of the 2026 proposed budget. I'd like to, just as we get started walking through this, there are going to be two primary interesting things that I'd like to direct your attention to. Number one, yes, we will be dipping into the total city fund balance next year. Most of that is capital project money that we have saved up to accomplish certain capital projects. So we'll get to those specifics shortly. And second, I'd like to revisit an idea that we proposed at the first budget workshop, which is for the city to be moving from the current thrift plan into the FRS system for a different type of retirement system that we feel will help longevity and be beneficial for the future of our city and the staff that we have. So with that, let's get right on into the slide presentation that we have here. Yep, go ahead. And Andy is at the controls for me. So the proposed budget, the all-in total proposed budget for FY 2026 is $50.3 million. And here you can see how it breaks out between capital outlays, 46%, and other operating expenditures. On the next page, we have some of the 2026 highlights. The first thing we'd like to point out is that the ad valorem taxable values rose 5% from last year. Taxes and benefits, as I mentioned at the previous budget workshop, the retirement and payments to the IRS in terms of FICA, which is Social Security and Medicare, that is expected to increase 19%. That's a worst case scenario if we move from our current thrift plan into the FRS. In order to support attaining that goal of the change in retirement system, directors have decreased their operating expenses. The current calculation is they've decreased 4% from the 2025 adopted budget. The capital improvement program is overall decreasing 45% if you're looking year over year from 25 to 26. Most of that is because we've either fully encumbered or have mostly complete the phase one of undergrounding. And we anticipate having large chunks of the crosstown connector, namely the stormwater portion of the crosstown connector, under contract before FY 2026 begins. All of the capital projects that you're going to see this evening that we're proposing to round out the whole budget are either grant funded or there's another contractual obligation. If they're grant funded, they might have match component. Or there's a resolution in place or a council motion in place that says how much we're supposed to put towards a certain thing. So those are some of the highlights. Let's go on to the next page. This is where you see the comparison year over year of the 2026 budget versus the 2025 adopted budget. At the far end of the graph, you'll see the two tallest pillars in there, that's the capital projects. So you see that dropping pretty significantly from 25 down to 26 levels. And you can see from the other major categories, those pillars are staying pretty even though there's, 3% decrease here, 4% decrease there, 19% increase there, but the dollars in total aren't that much. So the other pillars look pretty calm, pretty straight. The next page is another view of the 2026 proposed budget. This is the funding. Where's the funding going to come from? 37%, or $18 million, will be coming from taxes. Now, not all of that is the ad valorem. The ad valorem portion that we're collecting from Destin residents comes to just about $13 million, but there are other things classified as taxes, gas tax 1, gas tax 2, and other sources of taxes that come into the city that are not levied by the city. The most important part to watch on this page is that fund balance. 15%, or $7.3 million, will be helping us pay for the total budget. So now let's go on to the next page and just have a little look at what is that taking from the total city fund balance of $7 million. What is, looks like this page didn't get updated the last minute. So the 2026 proposed net change, I'm not sure if your page didn't get updated as well. Yeah, this page, it's actually 7.3 million, but you'll have that in your packet. You have some details that show you the fund balances in total, and then general fund, and then it'll show you the fund balances for all of the other capital project and other funds. So this page in the slide presentation didn't get updated. But the point of this slide and the yellow highlighting at the bottom is just to show that our total fund balance year over year is still staying very strong. This year, at the end of 2025, we're anticipating an unspent, especially from the capital project funds, of $11 million. So basically, we're rolling that $11 million forward to expend it on those capital projects next year. On the next page, we have another 2026 budget highlights. So here's where the proposing to use that $7.3 million of fund balance to balance the 2026 budget. 2.1 million of that is coming from our general fund, and that is right in alignment with our renewal and replacement policy that we signed as a resolution 2 years ago. For 2026, we're actually taking $2.5 million, putting that in our renewal and replacement fund. The renewal and replacement fund this year, 2025, we've been working very hard to get caught up on replacing items that were supposed to be renewed or replaced more than 25 years ago. In 2026, we're focused on things that were supposed to be renewed or replaced more than 15 years ago. So we're on that 5-year catch-up plan that we did by resolution 2 years ago. Let's see, what else do we have here? So again, the capital improvement program is focused on things that council's made a motion to do, resolutions that council has passed, grant matching funds, and or using restricted use funds. Let's go to the next page. So here's where you see the funding sources for most of those capital projects, expending out the last of the 2024 bond capital construction loan that we borrowed. We have a lot in the capital grant fund, so $9.9 million in capital grants coming into the city. Some electric franchise fee money, gas tax 2, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, most of these are restricted funds that'll be going to pay for the capital portion of the budget next year. On the next couple pages, we have a summary of the capital projects that we're proposing to do. Yep, thank you, Andy. At the top of the list, you can see we're going to continue with the Crosstown Connector. We anticipate this fall, after we sign this agreement with TRIP and with FDOT, that we'll get the construction portion of the Crosstown Connector roadway going. Right now, we're just focused on the stormwater component. We have in the capital grant fund, there's the four-prong lake stormwater. DEP has given us some pickleball money. The Crystal Beach and the Tarpon Beach park constructions are well underway. Mattie Kelly Pier outfall, we were given a state appropriation that'll be coming to council soon. Let's see, and then the next page, we have some more capital projects going on here. You see what we're putting, $898,000 of general fund money towards a few projects. The hurricane response is just in case. It's kind of an emergency placeholder so that we're able to pay the people to do debris cleanup immediately after a storm. Anything after that or above that, we would definitely come to council and get council approval before we did any further repairs. Collection development budget, this is a match. There's a match from the county, as long as from the county library co-op. So we try to maintain a changing of the collections of the library collection annually. We invest about $65,000 a year. We have the Noriega Point dune crossover that we're anticipating will be ready for payment probably by October, so that'll be right at the beginning of the new fiscal year. And then here's some money for to complete our pickleball courts to make those other grants come to fruition. Morgan's batting cage we're putting in here just in case we don't get to that September 30th. We have a bid opening tomorrow, and we're hoping that negotiations go smoothly. But just in case we're not able to encumber the funds for the batting cage before September 30th, we're putting that into next year's budget. We will remove it if we are able to encumber something before then. Library expansion, we have some library impact fees. As you know, library impact fees are supposed to be sent within 6 years of receiving them. The library director feels it's time to look at expansion, and so we're putting these funds aside to hire an architect to make some renderings to see what an expansion would look like. We have proposed using some more Okaloosa half-penny money. We've dropped the Okaloosa half-penny dedication to the Mattie Kelly Pier from $1.2 million down to only $200,000, thanks to the state appropriation that we were told was awarded. We have some funding in here to help round out accomplishment of the four-prong lake stormwater issues. And as you know, the council made a motion to give $100,000 to the Public Works Pedestrian Safety Committee. So we're planning on doing that again next year. Renewal and replacement, that's $6 million of this year's, the 2026 proposed budget, and that's exactly in accordance and alignment with the resolution that we signed a couple years ago. And then we have the transportation impact fees for the crosstown connector. Here we have a graphic of the destined taxable property values, so that you can see that they're still on the rise. The dotted line is the trend line. It's a linear trend line. So if we were sticking with the trend, FY25, we'd be closer to the $7 million value mark. So we're keeping our eye on that, just to make sure we don't have another little bubble like we had back in 2007 with that drop in 2013. So we're just keeping a close eye on where the trend line is going. The next page, so this is what we're looking at. If we keep this millage rate, and this is the decision that you have to vote on next Monday, if we keep the millage rate at 1.615, that means the average homesteaded property will pay to the city $545 next year. And you can see some of the other calculations. So in total, the levy would be $14 million. We always plan for a 1% delinquency rate, so that would be $13.9 million. The general fund would be receiving $12.6 million of that, and the two CRAs receive the balance. So here we are. Yes, go ahead. Yes. No, go ahead. So So we're at a really good pause place right here because we've gone through the capital projects. So you're welcome to ask any questions, and I'm going to grab my pencil because I forgot to bring that with me. And then we'll circle back to what we went on, talked about the thrift plan versus FRS at the end here. Oh, thank you.
I guess my question is about the CRA fund.
Button.
The CRA funds, does the CRA actually get that, or are those still encumbered by the payoff that we're doing?
Yes and yes. So these are by statute, by ordinance, dedicated only to the CRA, can only expend them upon CRA expenditures, which happens to be for the harbor CRA.
Yeah.
All of this is going to debt service. The town center CRA has some wiggle room, which brings us back to this, this summary in your packet by fund. You're going to see both of the CRAs in here, and you can see their fund balances and where we're headed. I did a projection out to 2027 in here.
That's in our packet now?
Well, we only have
Yes.
we only have one page that I've seen.
You pull it up on your computer.
Oh, it's in the computer, okay. Because I was going to say, I don't have all those pages in my little paper packet.
Oh
Okay.
dear. Looks like you just have the agenda cover page and just the slide presentation. But in the packet on what we published, you'll have this as well.
What page is that? One of what, or what of 8?
This one is 3 of 8.
3 of 8, thank you.
Has the 2 CRAs. So you'll see the Harbor CRA, we're looking by 2027 to have a fund balance of $39,000. And that's because of the purchase of their dedication to the undergrounding and the purchase of One Harbor Boulevard. So all that, the full amount going into the Harbor CRA is dedicated to debt service. The Town Center CRA, however, is on the other side of the spectrum. You know, they borrowed a lot of money back in 1998, 99. They did a lot of capital projects. Their values didn't come up. They weren't able to make their debt service. Well, now the tides have turned. The property values in the town center have come around, rebounded tremendously. And they're looking at a fund balance ending next year at $2.8 million or in 2027. So they've really come back. They've very much rebounded. The main capital project in the town center that's been on their horizon is the linear trail, the multi-use trail going along the easement lines. And they're nearly complete. We're still working on the easement portion of it. I have a feeling we're going to need a lot of grant funding to help accomplish that program. But hopefully we'll get some grants and things to supplement what the town center has, and maybe that's something that we could reasonably accomplish that's in their master plan. But it's not in there for right now, or we put it in 2027 just because we're waiting to see. We need some more grant funding to go there. So, Councilman Trammell, does that answer your questions? Okay. Yeah. Yep, Harbor CRA's tapped out for at least 5 years.
And that's because of the undergrounding?
Mainly
And
the
the
9
parcel?
Harbor Boulevard, right.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, but if the state comes back and reimburses us for Harbor One, then,
Well, I think if that happens, there's a question about whether the council has to allocate those funds back to the Harbor CRA, because when the state reimburses us, it's not reimbursing the CRA, it's reimbursing the city of Destin. So there have to be a vote, is what I'm saying. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Councilman Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. This is probably a question for some of the council members to know. Four Prong Lake, that's Destiny, right?
yeah, it's across the street from James Lee Park, but yes.
And why do we have to pay for their stormwater and it being a gated community?
We put our stormwater in their lake, and the state puts their stormwater, same reason the state's putting $1 million in, and the county's gonna put probably $1,800,000 in, because everybody dumps their stormwater in there, and that's not a retention pond. That was actually before the 1930s, before they put the road out there. They believe that it was actually a coastal dune lake. Yeah, and so when the state blocked it off, and then if you go out there and look at the way the drainage is, I'm not saying the city allowed Jay to move the road, but when that road was moved, all that drainage comes off that road and goes right into that lake. And so instead of the city keeping its water on its property, it sends it into that lake. So that's basically a match because the state's given us $1 million to fix that.
Is that just,
At least $1 million.
is that just on, we have to maintain our portion, like the road and stuff, or that's not all the neighborhoods and stuff, is it? Are we responsible for all that?
The
stormwater?
drainage area now, since FDOT changed the drainage area when they went from 4 to 6 lanes, used to, the easiest way to explain it was everything north of 98 drained through Regatta Bay into the bay. And everything south of 98 drained through that coastal dune lake in. When they changed the road, they expanded the area south of 98 to drain into, so it's a huge area now, and I can have Curtis come show you the map. But it also changed the flow from north of 98 through that coastal dune lake. So it doesn't go to the bay anymore, it comes straight into that lake. And so that's why the state's already ponied up $1 million, and they may pony up some more.
But that's,
And the county.
is that, do we have to take care of all the stormwater in that Destiny East and Destiny West or whatever? Or is it just on the north and south end?
Well, we're not, the fix to the stormwater issue, it's a little bit like when they did Indian Bayou. You remember a few years ago when y'all redid all the pipes?
I got you.
It's a little bit like that. We're not gonna go in there and take our water and put it back on our right-of-way, and the state's gonna we're just gonna say, we're gonna build a weir. The engineering design is to build a weir at whatever elevation the state, and they should have the permit. I emailed them today. They should have the permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, but that weir will be at whatever height they tell us it's gotta be at. And then once the water in that lake gets higher than that, it will go through that weir, out the pipe, back into the Gulf, just like it were a coastal, going back to the original coastal dune lake. They did this on a lake down in Panama City Beach, and it's worked fabulously. So it basically just reestablishes what was there 100 years ago.
That's great, because I had no knowledge of that whatsoever. And people's asking, why are we spending taxpayers' money in a gated community that we can't go in or whatever? And I'll get an answer.
Approximately what percentage?
Well, the homeowners have already ponied up somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000. The state's putting in $1 million. The county's going to put in somewhere around $600,000 to $1 million, and we're putting in, and it's out of our Okaloosa half penny, if I'm correct, Crystal, allocation. We're putting in $600,000 for that. So of a $3 million project, we're putting in 20%.
Thanks, Mayor, that's all I've got.
Cool. Yep, great question.
Yeah.
Yeah. That and what, 2 years ago when
Yeah,
the state
they did.
appropriation came around, the HOA showed up with about 50 people. And so, yeah, they got their appropriation then.
Yeah, and and I couldn't go because I was precluded from lobbying the state, but Carol McIver,
Yeah,
Curtis,
they-
showed out in Spain. That, if you want to get money for a project in this community from the state,
Yeah.
to where then we can figure out the grant matching funds, that's what you have to do. You have to show up in Tallahassee during session and have 30 people go in their office and go, you really need to get this in the budget. And I give Senator Trumbull and Representative Maney all the credit, because those people went in there and said, this is what we want, and we came all the way over here to Tallahassee today just to tell you that, and those two guys made it happen.
All right.
More of a need than a want.
Yeah.
Well, they've had one guy's house, it's been flooded 3 times because it's just, the guy's been in tears.
All right. Any other questions before we move on? Michael, if you don't have it off the top of your head, I can get with you after. Do we know like what roads we're looking at for the next one? That was just, gets too off
Yeah,
topic.
well, we have, it's a very long list.
Okay, yeah. Well, good.
But we
all
can
right.
send that to you.
All
Yeah,
right,
we have
perfect.
the list.
Yep, all right,
Yeah.
all right.
And has that list gone before the Public Works, Public Safety Committee and been vetted and they've blessed it?
No.
Okay.
But it will before it gets to you for the
Okay,
final
all right.
cut.
That's why because I know they go out in their little areas
Yep.
every month and inspect roads and sidewalks and lights that are out and all this other stuff.
All right, seeing nothing else, let's move on to retirement.
Yeah, so if council members don't have any more comments about the capital improvement program, one last comment I'd like to make is, you know that we recently hired Perez Consulting to do our Parks Master Plan update. So we'll be looking to their results to plan out capital improvements to our recreation and park areas. That'll be coming up. So, yeah, I just wanted to give everybody one more chance to ask any questions about FRS versus our current thrift plan, and just wanted to get some feedback from council members on what you think about this change.
I like it. I really like the 2.1 million grant fund, and it's 2 million to R&R. We need some money for rest and relaxation.
Yeah, no kidding.
Any questions or comments about the FRS versus thrift plan that we're proposing for our staff?
Yes, but it might be one-on-one, because I'm not quite sure exactly what to ask you. Now finally having insurance and using it and seeing the actual cost of what they bill us versus what we pay, which everyone I've talked to says, oh my God, that's like tremendous plan. I mean, I have nurses I talk to in the run club, and they're like, what's your deductible? That's insane. But with that, the question of, is there a cap before it starts turning out of pocket?
Okay, so that's an insurance
Yeah.
question, which is
Healthcare.
different.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
that's
this
a
is
healthcare
retirement, sorry.
question. And
Yeah, different.
I know that Jamie's
Yeah.
been working with our brokers about updating our plan, finding a way to get a less expensive plan for us, and she will have updates for a council meeting coming soon.
Awesome. All right, my bad for putting both of those in the same boat.
I do have a question
Yeah,
there.
please, sir.
To get ourselves back into FRS, there's an upfront cost? Or
No,
is,
no, sir, there's no upfront cost. The main difference is just now the employer and the employee will both need to pay the 6% into Social Security, as well as the obligations to FRS, which on the employee side is 3%. And the employer side, it depends on the level, but for the most of our staff, it's just over 13%.
okay, and that is going to be a year-to-year thing. It's not an upfront and then it goes down, right?
Correct. It's a every pay period thing. It's not an upfront cost.
Yes, and so,
These numbers here, so you can see the thrift plan cost, if we stay with it, we think that would be $10.6 million. If we move to the FRS plan, that would be about 11.3 million. So the difference is 710. So this 710, as you can see, the bulk of it, nearly 500,000 of that, is just the employer contribution to Social Security. That's where the big difference comes between the
okay,
two plans.
and my question is, since this is a reoccurring amount every year, where is the reoccurring revenue that we're going to rely on to up this to pay this every year?
Well, this is also, so it would make our personnel costs about 7% higher year over year.
It would.
Yes. So to combat this year, that's why our directors really looked hard at their budgets and tried to reduce their operating costs as much as possible. This is also a very worst-case scenario. We do not anticipate that all of our staff are going to move from the current thrift plan into FRS, but we wanted to make sure that we had the full picture here for you, just as a very worst-case scenario.
And I understand that. My question, of course, is you can't rely on reducing your staff every year for the next 25 years because we're going to be paying it and it will go up.
Right.
And our actual costs for our staff is going to go up. So do we have any idea or dedicated revenue source that we think is going to offset this rather than trying to reduce personnel every year?
Yeah, so that's the question and the payoff, because the base operating personnel costs mostly come from the ad valorem and the shared taxes that we receive, right? And the issue we've been battling for the last 5 years, probably longer, has been retaining qualified staff. So we've consistently been finding ourselves in a bind, short-staffed, and staff that are not qualified, that don't have municipal government experience. So that's what we're trying to balance. Do we make this investment, and we know it's going to cost us 7% more per year, and continue to struggle with keeping, especially at the higher level, keeping qualified staff with the right background and experience who will stay for the long term? So that's the balance that we're trying to find.
And I was hoping you were going to tell me we had an idea where we were going to have a dedicated fund, because, let's see, our increase of ad valorem value was 5%, which equates to how much more in the budget every year?
So this year, it's over $500,000 more.
So if it increases every year 5%, we're still 200,000 short every year. We need to think.
We've been proposing other fees as well.
I understand, and those are the ones I want to hear about. Otherwise, this is not a good recipe for someone who wants to remain in the black. But I would like to hear what the other fees are and how we're going to collect them. Because just say we're going to spend $700, and if we get an average of 5% ad valorem increase every year, we're still $200,000 behind. Not a good plan in the long run. So we'll address that as we go through.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Gao?
If we were going to pay that, would that be paid out of the general fund?
Yes, sir.
Huh. How much do you think we've given up to these deviants, STR deviants, this past year out of the general fund? Would that have covered that, do you think?
That would have covered this transition for a year, yes.
Wow, thank you.
And of course, we didn't vote to do that, so in the future, we'll have to if we want to make up the money on a number of areas, and that's just what I'm asking, if we have a roadmap.
You know, we still have out there, we've discussed a registration fee for short-term rentals for all the condos. We estimate that there are over 4,000 of them. So that, I'm not sure that council's really put that one to bed yet, but I'm sure that we'll be resurrecting that question again soon.
Yeah, and I think those funds would be restricted to transportation, but of course, it's all a shell game anyway. If we don't take that general revenue out and pay it for that, because we can pay for it with the transportation fees, then the money's still in the general revenue. So that is a fund source that makes me feel a little better.
Yes, you're correct. So we have both the mobility plan, so that'll take some of the
That's right.
pressure off the general fund for paying transportation-related issues.
Exactly, it will.
And then
it's
the
how
short-term
much?
rental registration is another,
Yeah.
we were hoping that that would help take off some of the pressure of the huge law enforcement bill that we have to pay every year.
Yes, and there may be some ways to work on that also. And so how much is the transportation fee, we think, a year? I'm sorry, the short term?
The short-term rental registration fee, we were looking at, we were also looking at options on who would do the billing and collecting for
Right.
us. But we were looking to net over $1 million a year.
Okay, well, there's some money right there.
That's just on the condo additions. That's not on what we're already seeing.
Yeah.
And while I greatly appreciate Mr. Destin's point, one thing to consider is the rate of increase for either one of these plans would still be the same.
Yes.
So, because it's based on what we're paying our employees. So if we give them a 5% raise, then we're going to pay 5% more costs in both Social Security and thrift plan.
Yep.
So, but no, I think the short-term rental condo revenue is a good cover for that.
All right, Councilman Gao?
So we could also look at raising the short-term, oh, bless you, sir. We could also look at raising the short-term rental registration fees annually as well, right? We're allowed to increase them, what, 5% annually?
That's true. So right now, we have 1,200 single-family residences in that program. If we were to add the condos, which in some people's opinion are part of the reason we end up with answering 60,000, our sheriff department ends up answering over 60,000 calls a year. That would be adding another 4,000 to 5,000 units to the program. So that's where the big change would come from. But yes, you're correct. We could, in theory, increase the short-term rental registration fee on the 1,200 single-family residences that are currently in the program.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yep.
Where are we with that short-term rental registration fee? 'Cause I thought we had a lot of movement going. And
Well, it brings me back to the issue of all of the turnover that we've had and the fact that we haven't had a consistent champion to help get this fee through. So
Are you
to be
talking
honest,
about on the council?
no, from the staff side.
A
So-
champion from staff?
Right. We need a primary person on the staff side to work with the council, a legislative support person to move it through the,
Didn't we
The
approve
agreements.
it to bring it for first reading or something?
maybe. But now we have a new community development director, we've got a new code of compliance director, everything's changed multiple times over the last 6 months.
Because I thought it was coming at a reading or something. So I guess
I believe it was approved by council in concept, but the next step was to get the actual fee and
that'd be cool if we could
adopted.
figure that out, because
That would
it
help
sounds like
tremendously.
everybody's looking for revenue, and that's one of the items I thought we all agreed on, but we can always change our minds every other meeting, so who knows? But, we push some things really quickly, like the SWAT team on the beaches for ice cream, so maybe we can get this one to start bringing in revenue to help the SWAT team that's going after the ice cream vendors. That'd be perfect. So maybe Larry can look into that when he gets back.
And I think we did actually discuss the fee amount. And I'm not sure how it just fell apart. I wouldn't say
$1,000.
it's from lack of staff lobbying, it just, we got new people that have not run with the ball, which we all thought we were about to do.
Yep.
So I would suggest they run with the ball and don't worry about the lobbying part.
Well, I can give you a little update. It's a collection. We thought we could work with the clerk to get them to help us with the collections. And Kim and I ran into at first they said yes, and then they said maybe, and then they said no. And so now, doing some research, I found a different Florida statute that I can't remember the number on right off the top of my head, but it's Florida Statute 213.0535, that through our local business tax, our BTR, we may be able to get that information from DOR, and I've got scheduled a call with DOR tomorrow to see, because part of it is there is a database, there's a universe out there that has the name, the address of every rental property in this county. And the clerk knows that because the clerk collects the TDT. But the clerk says, no, that's business information, which it's not, I can tell you, but that's okay. There's another way to collect this. Haven't been on the other side of the TDT collection issue. So now we're going to go, and if we have to go to the DOR to get that information, it makes it real easy for our staff, where we don't have to pay anybody, and we don't have to go out and hunt who's actually renting, because they have to pay the DOR or the clerk, and the clerk has to report that information up to the Department of Revenue at the state level. And we don't care how much they pay in TDT or how much they collect or remit. All we care about is their name and their address, and that they're doing short-term rentals, because then we send them a letter and say, you're collecting TDT and you owe us money as of this date. And so that's where I'm not going to say that's the whole issue, because I know there has been some turnover in staff, and Larry was trying to, get people ramped up on their different issues. But I know from the collection side, that is the issue that we have faced.
All right. Let's,
Yeah, when's his election? When's his election? Yeah, doesn't he?
Just got elected,
Wow.
I think so.
Tragic.
And it's not the clerk.
No, I'm just messing with you.
Relying on the advice of
Yeah,
his guy in
course.
the office there. that-
No, but I like your approach where if we can shave off a middleman that wants 10, 15% and we can
No,
do it internally, that's great.
Yeah, I would suggest at the next meeting, a motion be made to direct the city manager to make that a staff priority.
okay.
It's a workshop.
No, we can't motion.
yeah, it's a workshop, so we'll,
Guide-
yes,
Yeah.
we'll bring that.
Yes, and the acting city manager is making notes.
All right, back to the workshop.
Yes, so the last few slides are just to remind you. So here we have the 2026 operating budget, so you can see again the numbers year over year. And then we get to the next steps. And then there are a few slides after the next step. So bottom line is, next Monday, council will make a motion to adopt the tentative millage rate. And that's the deadline so that I can get that number. And you will also make a motion for the first public hearing for a budget. We're proposing September 3rd at 5:30 p.m. So those two items will be on the agenda for this coming Monday. I haven't heard any indicators to make any changes to the millage rate, up or down, either way. So we're proposing the 1.615 again. This will be the 9th year in a row. Then we have a few extra little slide pages in the back here. These are just more informational, nothing that I really wanted to go over in here. But these are just some commonly asked questions. So we have. You can see what the $50.3 million budget looks like by governmental activity. You see a large portion going towards transportation, thanks to our renewal replacement program, culture recreation. The general government, $10.7 million. $5.6 million of that is for debt service. The next page is just a reminder of our proposed FTEs. One FTE it's the labor hours in a year divided by 2080 equals one FTE. So here you see what we're proposing versus what we budgeted for 2025. The next page is also from workshop number 1. We're actually requesting to add one position, but overall, those labor hours that we're planning to pay out next year are less. Our new software has given us the ability to better plan labor hours in the year. Then we have a page that shows you the projected tax revenues, so you can see where that $18.3 million comes from. So you can see the TIF that comes from the county, BTRs, gas tax 1 and 2, and then the state communication services tax. These are all considered taxes. So you can see the whole picture there. The next page shows median taxable values of homesteaded, other residential, and non-residential properties within the city of Destin. So we categorized the parcels according to a use description provided by the property appraiser, and using the taxable values provided by the property appraiser. That's how we came up with these numbers. Look at that, homesteaded taxable value, the median is $236,000. How about that?
I think that's exactly what I paid for my house.
The next page, it's a commonly requested one, is like, well, how much millage would we bring in if we raised it from 1.615 to 1.715? Or how much more would we collect? So a homesteaded property would pay $22 more, and that would result in $862,000 more. And so those are just more informational. As I mentioned, also in your packet, you have all of the fund balances so that you can see the effect if we adopt this budget as it is. You also have The capital projects, these are the ones that are not just renewal and replacement. These are like special capital improvement projects. We've got the summary page on the front. And then each one, it has a cover page so you can see what year when we're planning on expending it in the next 5 years, how we're breaking it out, what are the funding sources. Sometimes there's a little picture if it's going to have an impact on operating. And then there's a second page with each one this year that shows the milestones, some of the major milestones and dates, so that our staff has target dates on when to let an RFP or to complete the design or to start construction and so forth. So where those are known, they're in here. The last thing that you have in your packet this evening is the data from the, so this is the trim data, the truth and millage rate data. So you can see what the property appraiser certified as our taxable values for the property, and you can see how much is going to each of our CRAs and so forth. So if you want the guts to see how the sausage is made and how those numbers are calculated, you have these in there. And with that, I'm just going to open it up to your comments, and I'll take any feedback that you have. And don't forget, we've got Monday evening to discuss where you can actually make motions. And then we'll have 2 public hearings where you can continue to discuss, make any adjustments, and make any other motions. So it looks like Kevin might have a thought or a comment.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Crystal, for doing all this with you and your staff and all the other directors. It's always I always enjoy it. I would, feedback next year, I would cancel the first one we had and just do this one, or combine them or something. I think we were only here for like 20-something minutes at the last one, so.
Yeah, so the reason we don't hold the all-encompassing one until after July 1st is because that's the official date that the property appraiser publishes, certifies the taxable values. But if next year you'd like to wait until July 1st to start, we can do that.
So, have we ever considered, or do you have anything available that would show if we did not keep the rollback rate, but instead dropped it to where people would not have any increase in their property tax they pay to us?
I can calculate that for you if you're curious. The rollback rate, I forgot to put that on this slide. It was actually very close.
It was like 1.53.
Because just so I understand, we don't increase the rate, we use the rollback rate, but as property values increase, we get more money.
Well, that's the thing about the rollback rate. I mean, there is a little inflationary factor put in by the state of Florida, but otherwise it is technically no tax increase.
But people pay more because the property value increased, right?
No, it's the idea that it's taking it back if your property hadn't increased in value.
But if your
Taking it
property
back down to
increases
that.
in value, you have to pay more than the previous year, right?
Well, that's the
percentage
idea.
is the same.
That's the idea of the rollback rate, is that I paid $495 last year.
Okay.
If we adopted the rollback rate instead of the 1.615, 1.615 takes into account that your change in property value, but the rollback rate wouldn't. It would put you back at that $495 contribution like you paid last year.
Okay, so we approve a rollback rate, and I paid $495 last year, but my property value went up by 10% or whatever, I still pay $495 this year. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the only thing just to keep in mind with that, we can go down as much as we want, and then there's some state statutes about going back up. So if we were to go negative in the property valuation, it's harder to bring that back. Not that that would stop us from one way or the other, but there's a little bit of a variance of going up, but we can go back as much as we want.
Sure. So on the capital improvements page 11, what makes up the $900,000 of recreation facility renewals?
There's a lot there was another 20 pages of details behind the renewal and replacements. It's funny, because I printed out the renewals for recreation
Could you,
right before I came in here, and I didn't bring it with me.
Could you send that over email
Sure.
electronically at some point? to
Yes.
All of us, I guess, maybe,
Okay,
all of us?
because there was also a request about the roadways, I am going to send
Roadways.
to the council members the renewal and replacement details for FY '26.
And then on the, these pages, that each, from my understanding in the budget book, each capital project will have a sheet. The cyber Zerby says fiscal year '27, just like another one. Is it just information only then? It's just like, hey, we're possibly going to do this in '27?
That's correct. So the delay has been, we've had the undergrounding equipment
right.
there. So yeah, we pushed it out another year, giving them time to get
Is
the
it
poles
normal
and
just to
everything out.
include it just?
Yes,
for shits and
normally we
giggles?
give you the 5-year.
Okay, 5-year. So the capital improvement, capital projects, we don't have anything like new that we're working on then, I guess you would say.
Correct, because,
We're trying to finish stuff that we have.
right, and dipping $7.3 million into the total fund balance, that's kind of a scary prospect. So yeah, we were trying to keep it as minimal and accomplish the projects that we have already underway.
Okay. And then you mentioned the master plan for the Parks and Recreation. Are you saying all that, what you said earlier, because we're going to have that to be able to implement in this budget? Or are you just reminding us
No,
that
I'm
there's
just-
nothing in here for the
yeah.
Parks and Recreation?
There's just a
Just to
few-
remind us for next year that
Yeah,
we'll be doing it.
there are some replacements. The most important replacement for Parks and Recreation is at the community center. We're still working on the water intrusion.
Right.
So that's still in the budget because we haven't encumbered those funds yet. The other one that we have for next year is, over the last 2 years between Destin water users and the city of Destin, we've been replacing a lot of the sod at Morgan's. So there's one more sod program scheduled for Morgan's just to keep all of that in alignment. But other than that, no, there's nothing.
So when you mentioned the master
Technically new, we're
plan,
waiting for the
right.
master plan to really.
So for
set-
next year's budget?
Yeah, estimate the amounts, set the time dates, set the priorities on,
So we
Deer
missed the
Foundation
time, we
first
missed
and
the
so forth.
deadline for this year's budget.
We don't have
again.
any data.
Okay. So we can't come up with our own plan to,
It's not too late.
Fix
You
things?
can bring things to any
Okay.
council meeting.
Sounds good.
And
I'll
make
work
a
on
motion
it.
to add them. Yeah.
appreciate it. And thank you again for
What-
presentation.
Kevin, I think to your point, we can earmark a certain, whatever number we want, that they can stockpile in light of, we know the master plan is coming and we'll want to start it. Do we want to wait a full year to start it, or do we want to put some money in a fund right now so that we have that allocated to begin something?
Yeah, I agree. And then the only other kind of on that train of thought of nothing new coming up, the only pot of money that I was looking at that would be restricted, that we're not really tapping into, would be our parking fees. And I think there could be creative ways to do things like with that fee to help other areas of town. I think we've all have agreed that places over at the harbor don't seem to have the political will to do anything over there. But I think there's plenty of spots over in Crystal Beach and even at Morgan's perhaps where parking would fall under that handcuffed funding source. So looking for some ideas here in the future on that. Is there any other, I guess, handcuffed funds outside parking that we haven't flipped that rock over yet?
Yeah, so this summary by fund,
Yeah, just go.
we've got the total of all the funds up at the top. Then we have the general fund. Any other fund that's not the general fund is because there's an ordinance or a law that says we need to have another fund. So all these other funds, they have special little restrictions on them one way or another. Some of which council has done by motion, others that have been done by the states, some that council's done by either ordinance or by resolution as well.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, just in case.
I just had a couple of questions. Renewal and replacement, do we have a criteria for that? I mean, it covers buildings, HVAC, roads, cars. Is there a criteria that says, okay, at this point, we replace this, and is it hard and fast? How are those decisions being made?
So it depends on the capital asset that we're looking at. We've categorized major components of the facilities, like the heat pumps and the air handlers, the roofs, and then the roadways, it's based on when was the last restriping, and is it a collector or an arterial, and what are the number of years that the surface needs to be milled or replaced at. There is a rule of thumb that Michael Burgess can tell you about. You know, if you start deteriorating down to the underlayment, then it costs about 7 times more to fix the roadway. So he's keeping his eye on all that. So for each component, there are different rules of thumb. Each vehicle, each gator, each major piece of equipment that Parks and Rec uses, field pros, sprayers, all these different things. There are different criteria that they're looking at. It includes the age and the condition, and with vehicles, number of miles, and
Okay.
so forth.
I'd be interested in seeing those criteria. Those are set not by resolution, are they?
They were part of the packet. When we set the resolution, we had all of the criteria and all of the numbers
Well,
in
then
the
we can get that
packets.
fairly easily then if it's already there.
Yes, it's all done. It's
Okay,
readily
I'd like-
available.
I'd like to look at that in a little more detail. Tell me about fund balance. It looks like fund balance is going to go down substantially.
That's correct. For
And
the
how
next
does it
5
happen?
years,
What
it
are we
is
doing?
the
I mean,
for
how
the
does that happen?
That's because we chose a 15-year amortization schedule instead of a 20-year amortization schedule on the debt. So yes, for the next 5 years, under this current debt service payment, our fund balance is going to go down. And then we'll see what happens on year 5 when we pay that balloon payment and refinance.
Yeah, so the object is to pay it off quicker and pay less interest, is that?
That's correct.
And at what point, how much farther is it going to go down? Of course, fund balance is reserves. What do we categorize fund balance as?
Right, so our fund balance policy, we have committed, right now it's hovering around $13 million as our emergency reserve.
Right.
That is equivalent to 1 year of debt service, plus 6 months of operations, plus an equivalent to 6 months of operations, which is the emergency operating reserve. So technically, we have in the bank with Raymond James right now, just over $13 million for that reserve. The fund balance that you're going to see, the lowest point that we get over the next 5 years from in our general fund, is going to dip down to $24 million.
And
So, which is still above the $13 million emergency reserve level.
Between 25 and 26 is going to be what? Because I think it was going down.
So here we have, I only showed out to 2027 here.
Yep.
But by 2029, we get down to $24 million. And that's when we need to refinance that debt. We might want to lengthen the time frame to make the debt service payments a little more easy and palpable over time. So we'll look at that again in 4 years.
Okay, so the difference is between this year and next year, the fund balance goes up, down?
The total fund balance of all funds actually starts increasing again next year. It's the general fund that concerns me. That one's going to
And
continue
that-
going down.
That concerns me too, which is really where I'm trying to get with this line of questioning. We're going down substantially, right? And with talk from the federal government about scaling back or getting rid of FEMA, I've been through Opal and a couple of the others, and that's not a good thing if we get hit. It's a very bad thing. So what is the answer to that other than just put ourselves at risk?
Well,
mean,
a
we
lot of
can-
the other capital funds are monies that we could do.
We could use instead
We
if
could
we had
use
to?
for repairs and maintenance related to, if we had a FEMA disaster and we had infrastructure and other things. So this, for example, this total fund balance up here that in 2027 is showing about $48.9 million. By 2030, It's because of all of those capital improvement funds, the electric franchise fee and other things that, you did a motion to restrict it in a certain way, you can do a motion to restrict it in a different way.
Exactly.
So the total overall city fund balance will be increasing up to 55 million by 2029.
Well, that sounds more reassuring, however, what.
I know for me, it's about the general fund balance, but
Yeah.
I understand your point of
The
view.
general fund balance is what kind of concerns me, because if it gets down low enough, well, that's the reason we need to dramatically increase taxes. And so, something we need to watch and not put ourselves in a position where it looks like that's the only choice we have.
All right, Councilman Bagby,
Yeah,
then Guy.
well, I want to answer a couple of questions first before I get into all my little issues. That is correct. We do go down to 24 million. I think the resolution is a year of debt, 6 months of operating, and 6 months of personnel costs. But
It's worded 6 months emergency operations, which
Yeah.
is equivalent to 6 months of operations, which
Okay.
in the operations includes the personnel.
okay. So that we know, because as you know, having been through storms, cash is king, and we're going to pay our people, and we're going to tell the cleanup guys, we can cut you a check tomorrow. You can go over to Fort Walton Beach, and you'll get reimbursed when FEMA reimburses them a year from now. So you make up your mind where you want to put your trucks. The other thing about the way we set it up is and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure, we don't have to wait for the 5 years. Remember when we amortized it? If the interest rates go down, because the discussion we had at the time was, yeah, they're high, but they're going to go down. And when they do go down, it may be 2 years from now, but when they go down to a certain point, it makes sense for us to refinance and say, okay, and we might amortize it again over 15 years as opposed to whatever the remaining amount of time is. So I agree 100% with what you're saying, but I think we've put some safeguards in there to protect ourselves. And like Crystal said, we can, we passed the direction to renewal replacement fund and this fund and that fund, and we can come in here next Monday and say, yeah, we're going to not do the renewal and replacement fund, although I think we did the right thing because, as you know, in the old days, we did try to maintain everything. And then best practice, and I wrote the note because I think it was one of your issues, but it may have been one of Kevin's issues. I don't have a problem with if we have an idea, saying, well, we want to put a little money aside for something in Parks and Recs, but Kevin asked what the Parks and Recs things were. Well, when I go through the sheets, or when I went through the sheets this weekend, we've got the dune crossover at $234,000 that we voted to add out on Noriega Point. So that cost is on us. It's not on anybody else. We've got the pickleball courts. Now, the total cost is $725, but that's not all on us. So that's not, because you would say, well, that's already over the $900,000 or whatever. We've got the batting cages at $98,000. That's on. We voted to do that. We're replacing the grass. So I think there are some things that we're doing, and I'm not saying we don't do additional things. I'm just saying we need to, in a budget, we need to know where it's coming from and what it's for and what it's going to produce. As opposed to just saying we're going to set aside a bunch of money that we may or may not use when we have money, particularly from my perspective, dipping into the general, the funding mechanism is, I don't like doing that. I understand why we're doing it this year, but I just don't like depleting our reserves, for lack of a better term. The first thing I want to do is I want to thank you for paring this presentation down much cleaner, much better than in previous years. It's like, here's what you need to know, here's what you're going to need to make a decision on going forward, as opposed to just going through spreadsheets and everybody, glazing over after about 15 minutes. A much better presentation. Thank you so much. As a legislative sponsor, I'd like for you to, when you bring this to us on Monday, 2 motions. The motion to set the millage at the current rate. I understand the rollback rate, but the rollback rate would be 1.53 something, and it's, then we got to go through a whole different exercise of, well, how are we going to pay people and how are we going to do these extra things that we want to do? And then a motion to allow our staff the opportunity to individually select to move to FRS and Social Security. And while I appreciate your numbers, and I agree 110% with what Mr. Desson said during his time, I don't think everybody's going to pick it, so I don't think it's going to be an additional 200,000. Probably going to be 150 or so. I mean, it's not going to be zero. I feel confident. But just the fact that we're going to give them the opportunity, I think that helps us in retention going forward, because I think, if I were working in Fort Walton Beach or Niceville or Walton County or Bay County, and you offered me a job, and then I found out, wait, you're going to pull me out of the FRS retirement system and you're going to pay? Yeah, it just makes it harder to get quality people. So if you'll put those 2 motions, and I may think of a third one, which I'll contact you with. But yeah, I think 2 things I'll say in closing. The fact that nobody is here means the citizens trust us in the process, because if they were unhappy with the way we're spending their money, they would be here with their pitchforks in their hands letting us know that they were unhappy, and they're not. And they weren't at the first, there were a few people at the first one, but the trust that the citizens have and the work that all of y'all have done, and you, Crystal, and Larry, and Jamie, particularly on this retirement stuff, Michael, is going to be good. The best practices thing, you asked a question about how we got those numbers. And Michael will correct me if I'm wrong. We took the best practices of a roadway lasts this long, and after this, if you replace it after this, i.e. before it gets to the substrat, it'll cost this to replace. Once after that, then it's going to cost 7 times, I don't remember the exact amount more, but the average lifespan of a air handling unit or a heating unit, heat pump or whatever is this, and so we did it just like a reserve study, just like I'm going to replace my roof in 30 years, and I'm going to repaint the house in 10 years, and I'm going to redo the landscape, and so that was the process that we went through, and I know we have those numbers, and I know Michael can, pull them up and send them to you just like that, so that to give y'all confidence that the process that we went through. Our problem is catching up, because we didn't do it for a while, and now we got to take care of the old stuff. Even when we were doing it, we weren't doing it 100%, because there were roads that, well, we can just restripe this one, or sidewalks, well, we don't really need to put a sidewalk there yet. Now we're trying to do the whole thing. But thank you, Crystal, great job.
Councilman Guile.
Thanks, Crystal. I have one just crazy question because I can't see it in here. And I want to make sure that I'm right, that I'm accurate on this. So the parking passes for Henderson State Park, that comes out of the Parks and Rec Fund too, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Where is
So
that
people pay, depends on if they're a senior citizen or just a regular person. Let's see, that should be in the, it's tucked away and hidden within the general fund.
Okay.
I have another report I can do pretty easily by department instead of by fund. But we have a lot more departments than we have funds. They're all mixed up. But generally speaking, people pay between $25 and $30 a year for those Henderson passes. And I'd say the revenue received year over year just about matches what Henderson charges us. Henderson, for those who don't know, they charge us a per car fee every month. We pay those invoices monthly. And they about match.
All right, thank you.
All right, yes, Councilman Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you for you and your staff and all the department heads. Great job. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Yep, Councilman
One
Dust.
other quick question, something that would help me is, if you can come up with a list of our anticipated revenue increases, such as the short term, such as the mobility fees, that way we can say, okay, we're gonna have this much more money this year, and over here is our priority for where we want to spend it, and maybe we need to increase those a little bit more to address this. That's always a breath of fresh air, and I'm sure everybody would like to see that, so we know exactly how much increased revenue we're going to get and where we can direct it. Thanks. Thanks for the job.
All right, Mr. Hamel, anything?
I was just going to say thank you.
Oh, right.
This wasn't like.
Sorry, I'll try to be quick because I gotta pick up my kid up at football, but a couple of quick things I forgot. One, does the budget hearing have to be September 3rd on a Wednesday instead of the Monday?
It
council
cannot,
meeting?
by state statute, it cannot be before September 3rd.
Okay,
That's the earliest day that we're allowed.
sure, just curious. I'm not sure if it's a town center item, capital item, whatever, but we've also mentioned in the past, I know I've had discussions with Larry as well, about median project improvements. And between Airport Road, I think that's part of its town center, right? Main Street. You look at your town center CRA fund.
Yeah, it's all Airport Road.
I lost my page. Oh, yeah. So it's going up from, it's going to be 2.4 and then 2.8, It'd be interesting to see what a median improvement project to tear out all of the horrible bushes and things like that. They're just dying and replace it, I think at one point we talked about, it's going to cost like $150,000. Well, sure, but if you budget it and you get the quote and whatever, we take care of it, we should be able to do that. Especially in the town center CRA fund, why not, right? Just an idea. And then to Jim, to your point about some of the things that we voted on, you are right, the dune crossover, it was kind of like state was here in front of us and said, you better do this, or we're not, we all voted on it, we did it, and it's going to be nice to have the crossover. Stuff that we've spent in the past year at Parks and Recreation, I think nearly $2 million has been emergency spending, lights and a playground over there at that park. Those were emergency items that we basically just pulled out of the general fund and made it happen. No? Well, maybe not general fund, but it was not a budgeted really item.
Yeah, we adopted those as part of
Gotcha.
the 2025 budget.
Okay, so we did budget that one.
But to your point, in 2025, last summer, when we were looking at which projects should we do first, we were definitely looking at safety concerns. So
Right.
to your point, yeah.
I got you. Well, yeah, and I think so. Like Councilwoman Trammell, I think the idea, and Jim, you said you somewhat agree with it. We just need to know what it's for, which I do agree with you. I think for nearly 2 years we've had on our council objectives to have a plan for Morgan's and for other recreational facilities in the city. That plan was supposed to be created, was not supposed to be the master parks plan. So all we are trying to say is we should, I believe, and Ms. Trammell might agree, is have a plan for doing things for our recreational parks as well, because we don't really have that. There's sod coming that you said. And so I spoke with Larry and I spoke with Lisa some time ago, and we were supposed to have a plan for that this year. I don't know where that is, but I'll be following up with them and finding that out.
To your point, the Parks Department, they did submit about $5.2 million in requests. A lot of them were very heavily related to the Morgan Center, putting up sunshades, swapping out the dugouts and everything else. But as we're dipping so deeply into the fund balance.
So then who gets to make the
and
decision not to include a single one of those things in this presentation?
We didn't have enough. Lisa was out of town, and so in time and preparation for this workshop, we didn't have all of the backup details, so we weren't able to When Larry looked at them last week, he just didn't feel comfortable going deeper than $7.3 million into the, a fund balance deficit.
just so I
But we
understand,
still,
you're
but we
saying-
still have those, and we're still gathering all the information.
Okay.
And we're working on a prioritization plan of in what priority and what timing do we address all of those issues. But Parks and Rec, they did put all of that data together.
But just, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Larry said that we weren't prepared enough to have the information in this
He did
budget
not
workshop.
feel that the packets that he had on each of those projects, because of vacations and other timing, he did not feel comfortable that all the data and all the dates and everything was there and ready to go. So he said to take those, when all of that data comes together, then we'll present to council with the sense of timing and urgency appropriate. But he did not feel comfortable including it in this budget workshop packet for this evening.
Okay.
And just on that, it's very smaller peanuts compared to everything, but the state's FERDAP, which is the recreation, opens up September to October, and that's a matching grant if we want to get up into the $250,000. Cool. Anything else? Final words? Nothing else? Everyone's shaking. Good job. All right. Thanks everyone for being here. Thank you, staff. And with that, the workshop is adjourned.